Sound. This is the third video in a mini-series drilling down into the advanced technology of the antediluvian world. To start with, I thought about its defensive applications. To scare birds away from crops, some farmers will build a version of a bamboo water fountain with an extra loud noisemaker built into it, like a piece of metal. This version is meant to scare off bigger things. Water is poured into the giant basin above. It slowly drips through the serpent spout and down into the vessel below. A handful of times a day, the weight of the water is enough to cause the clapper to strike the hanging bell. The bell is shaped like a man for a few reasons. First, because it's a bit creepier. A band of raiders seeing what looks like a gibbet in the distance may be encouraged to seek their spoils elsewhere. Second, perhaps you could actually put a person in there as a form of punishment, to be kept awake as long as the water lasts. Obviously, that would muffle the sound somewhat, diminishing the bell's primary purpose, so you'd only do that on special occasions. Thirdly, I'm exploring technology that was developed over the course of centuries, often pushed along by fallen angels with a deep knowledge of the mechanics of creation. None of us will be able to fully comprehend that, so we'll have to settle for apprehending it. As a visual shorthand, I'll lean on designs that look mysterious as a way to imply that there are some physics at work that we simply cannot understand yet. Here's my idea. What if the various silhouettes of humans from different angles are actually useful waveforms? What if we're walking around with bodies that are literally the three-dimensional grooves on a record, waiting for the right needle to play the useful tunes built into us? In this case, a human-shaped bell that makes just the right sound to terrify the local crop-devouring vermin, or perhaps it rings with just the right frequency to throw predators into a confused panic. As discussed in the first episode of Dead Gods, the shipwright is a shepherd. But make no mistake, while he has spent more time in the fields than any living human alive today, that was only a fraction of how he used his time. He is the proud shepherding son of generations of shepherds, inheriting an empire that has been growing for 1,000 years. According to the biblical timeline, Adam's son Seth would have died a mere 14 years before the shipwright's birth. This would mean that in his youth, he would have known 7 living generations of his family, all of whom would have known the first man face to face. In future videos, I'm going to be exploring some of them a bit further. This would mean that the shipwright would be the head of a thriving millennia-old industry, relying not just on his own centuries of experience, but also the teaching of a half-dozen experts with over a millennia of combined experience of their own. He's not just standing in a field watching flocks. He's the lord of a small kingdom of shepherds. He oversees trading, shipments, defensive forces, the many sub-industries downstream, and the small city that would be necessary to support this industry. I'll be making a video specifically about this as well. There's one amazing byproduct that all of this affords him: research. The time, resources, and access that would give him room to learn new and better ways to improve on his house's craft. Here I've given him one of the results of that research: a ceramic and metal animal call. What at first looks like a simple clay flute or ocarina, it has been shaped and reshaped by generations and refined through observation and testing. By covering the right combinations of tone holes, combining sound made from clever internal chamber shapes and instruments, a vast array of calls can be produced. This allows them to mimic the sounds of hungry predators, the mating calls of their various flocks, or the complex bird songs that the shipwright's house uses to communicate over long distances. While the shipwright's call is a finely tuned marvel of musical engineering that can be discreetly tucked in a travel bag, I also wanted to try something a little more stationary. This gigantic horn could serve several purposes. To start, scaring off unwanted creatures. I engraved it with a terror of Tyrannosaurus rexes, implying that the sound this thing produces would be overwhelming even for them. It would also be a great way to communicate important information to people living across a vast territory, different counts and lengths of sound carrying different meanings. As with the previous technology videos, I have to mention weapons. Here I sketch out a vibrating sword, followed by a drum cannon that started to get a little too Dr. Seuss and to pull it back, and a weaponized tuning fork. For the vibrating sword, I connected it to a battery, just to imply that there's some internal mechanism that helps to keep it humming at the desired frequency. Like a hammer drill or electric carving knife, the vibration helps the blade to do more damage on contact. For the drum cannon, I imagined a special two-man instrument that focuses the impact of a large drum into a focused burst of sound waves. There are extra channels that take some of the initial sound, bouncing it around and redirecting it at different speeds to join back with the main chamber. To represent the unique damage that some of these weapons caused, I paused to draw up some mystical-looking cymatics. Targets that get hit by this cannon's heavily manipulated sound waves are wounded in surprisingly beautiful ways. Similar to the human-shaped bell, to represent the idea of eternal secrets, I added some extra pieces to this tuning fork that look like part of an incantation. They aren't decoration though. They are essential, practical additions to get the desired killing sound. Anything that gets too close to the vibration is atomized in mesmerizing ways. Finally, I can't talk about fringe antediluvian vibration technology without touching on construction. Again, assuming they're working with knowledge given to them by creatures with a deep understanding of how the universe works. Each team is using different tuning devices that respond to their own resonance, like different channels on a radio. Many are fixed to the stone with a strong wax or rubber depending on what's needed. Starting at the top, there's a masonry technique that involves rubbing two stones together so that they polish each other, allowing for a smoother fit. What if you could set one stone to vibrate at just the right frequency so that it could almost be melted down into place, making for a perfect, immovable fit? Another idea is to set a stone to vibrate in a way that minimizes its footprint. It almost starts bouncing on the ground, reducing friction overall, making it easier to maneuver. Apply this same concept to cutting and shaping stone. Saws, chisels, polishing equipment, all able to efficiently work the rock. I had some fun drawing a Nephilim overseer. In the distance is another bouncing rock being pulled by a triceratops. Finally, the idea of a musical instrument that can loosen dirt and sediment, assuming the right frequencies can be hit, allowing them to mine faster or swiftly reshape parts of the landscape. A construction site like this might almost sound beautiful, or it might sound like a bulldozer driving over an orchestra pit. This concludes my 3-part mini-series on the technology of the antediluvian world. There will, of course, be more technologies that I'll touch on inside of other videos, but for now, between glass, electricity, and sound, we have some very helpful world-building tools. They are the visual shorthand I needed to be able to imply people's expertise from longevity and the influence of the secret knowledge of the Watchers. By adding these advanced elements, we'll be able to see the story. And second, they'll help to set dead gods apart. I wanted to throw some ingredients into this soup that would make it memorable. Giants and dragons are awesome. Vampire sorcerers too. And being able to sprinkle on some glass, electricity, and vibration tech start to shape it into something else entirely. With these tools, I'm ready to begin to tackle a massive subject that may take another handful of videos to cover: architecture. But before I do, there is a video that I must make next. I'm more than excited to dive into ancient glass and electric Art Deco megastructures than you could possibly guess, so I don't want to exasperate you, but I think this next video will be a nice palate cleanser before we really dive in. You can help this project. Click the buttons, leave a comment, go to my website, buy a book or a print, follow me on stuff, sign up on Patreon. Thank you all so much for the support you've already shown. It's been overwhelming, and a special thank you to my Dragon Tier patrons. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.